Agano was the lead ship of the Agano-class cruisers which served with the Imperial Japanese Navy IJN during World War II. She was named after the Agano River in Fukushima and Niigata prefectures in Japan. Background: Agano was the first of the 4 vessels completed in the Agano class of light cruisers, which were intended to replace increasingly obsolete light cruisers in the Imperial Japanese Navy. Funding was authorized in the 4th Naval Armaments Supplement Progrès of 1939, although construction was delayed due to lack of capacity in Japanese shipyards. Like other vessels of her class, Agano was intended for use as the flagship of a destroyer flotilla. Design: the design for the Agano class was based on technologies developed by the experimental cruiser Ibaru, resulting in a graceful and uncluttered deck line and single smokestack. Agano was armed with 6 152 Type 41 guns in 3-gun turrets. Secondary armament included 4 8cm 60 Type 98 naval guns designed specifically for the class, in 2 twin turrets amidships. Anti-aircraft weapons included 2 triple 25 AA guns in front of the bridge, and 2 twin 13 mounts near the mast. Agano also had 2 quadruple torpedo launchers for Type 93 torpedoes located below the flight deck, with 8 reserve torpedoes. The torpedo tubes were mounted on the center line, as was more common with destroyers, and had a rapid reload system with 8 spare torpedoes. Being mounted on the center line allowed the twin launchers to fire to either port or starboard, meaning that a full 8 torpedo broadside could be fired, whereas a ship with separate port and starboard launchers can only fire half of its torpedoes at a time. 2 depth charge rails and 18 depth charges were also installed aft. Agano was also equipped with 2 Aichi E-13A aircraft and had a flight deck with a 26-foot catapult. The engines were a quadruple shaft-geared turbine arrangement with 6 boilers in 5 boiler rooms, developing 100,000 shop 75000 kW for a maximum speed of 35 knots 65 km. Service career. Early career. Built at Sasebo Naval Arsenal, Agano was laid down on June 18, 1940, launched on October 22, 1941 and completed on October 31, 1942. On completion, she was assigned as flagship of Destroyer Squadron 10 of the IJN 3rd Fleet. On December 16, 1942, Agano began her first combat operation, joining the aircraft carrier Junhoi and other ships to escort troops to Wooak and Madang in New Guinea, and later patrolling in the Bismarck Sea and covering landings of Japanese forces. At Hollandia, Agano was next involved in the evacuation of Japanese troops from Guadalcanal, which was completed in February 1943, with about 12,000 Japanese soldiers evacuated. In May 1943, Agano returned to Kurain Naval District and was assigned to the powerful fleet intended to counterstrike against American forces which had landed on Attu Island in the Aleutians. However, by the time the force was assembled, the Americans had completed their capture of the island, and the strike was called off. In June 1943, Agano put in at Kurain Naval Arsenal for refit, including the addition of air search radar Type 21 and an additional 1025 Type 96 anti-aircraft guns in 2 twin and 2 triple mounts, adding to the original 2 triple mounts for a total of 16 guns. Operations in the Solomons. After refitting and dry dock, Agano departed for Truk in the Caroline Islands with a large Japanese force. Despite numerous sightings by American submarines and an attack on the aircraft carrier Ziwi, Agano made it safely to Truk, where she began ferrying troops and supplies to Rabaul from July to October 1943. Agano sortied with the fleet to attempt to intercept American raiding forces near Eniwetok in September 1943, but failed to make contact. Another attempt to intercept the Americans in October was a failure as well. However, on November 2, 1943, while part of the fleet supporting the defense of Rabaul, Agano participated in a major action, the Battle of Empress Augusta Bay, against American units in which the cruiser Sendai and destroyer Hatsukaze were both sunk. 3 days later, back in port at Rabaul, Agano was barely missed by an American airstrike launched by the aircraft carriers USS Saratoga and USS Princeton, sustaining slight damage and with 1 crewman killed. The fleet put to sea to engage American forces, but this was cancelled and the fleet returned to Rabaul by November 7, 1943. In harbor at Rabaul on November 11, a Mark 13 torpedo launched by a Gruen TBF Avenger aircraft hit Agano in the stern, bending one of her shafts and flooding 4 compartments. Rear Admiral Morikazu Asuji was also injured in the attack. The next day, Agano was taken under tow by her sister ship, Noshiro, together with 4 destroyers, for repairs at Truk. However, a few hours after departure, the ships were sighted by the American submarine USS Scamp, which launched 4 torpedoes. Agano was struck again in the stern, damaging a second screw shaft and severely buckling several plates. Later that day, the accompanying destroyers fought off an attack by the submarine USS Albacore using a 4-hour-long depth-charge barrage. Agano finally reached Truk on November 16. Sinking. After 3 months of emergency field repairs, from November 1943 until mid-February 1944, Agano was finally able to leave Truk, albeit on only 2 of her 4 screws. In the course of repairs, 19 of her bulkheads had to be removed. She departed Truk on February 15, 1944, escorted by the destroyer Oit and submarine Hunter Chapter 28, for the Japanese home islands where she was to be properly repaired, but could make only 16 knots 30 kilometers. H. 18 mph. On the afternoon of February 16, 170 nautical miles 310 kilometers north of Truk, the 3 vessels were spotted by the American submarine USS Skate, which launched 4 torpedoes. 2 struck Agano on the starboard side, flooding boiler rooms 3 and 5, and setting the ship ablaze. She remained afloat until the early morning of February 17, allowing Oit to rescue 523 survivors from her crew of 726 men. Agano sank at 1011N15142E coordinates. 1011N15142E at 05:17 on February 17. Agano was removed from the Navy list on March 31, 1944. However, as Oit attempted to return to Truk that afternoon, the destroyer was sunk by torpedoes launched by Gruen TBF Avengers in the course of Operation Hailstone, and sank within minutes at the north entrance to the atoll, taking all but 20 of her own crew down with her. All of the Agano crew members originally rescued were lost.